So, well, hey, let's keep it real. Most of the time when I walk in a room, there isn't anyone in the room that looks like me.
I know what you mean. I've experienced the same thing in my career as well.
Let's get into it. Inside Guys Chronicles. Stay tuned, guys.
So this is episode 2 of Chronicles of the Inside Guys, and this is where we're going to talk through some stories and share stories, real stories from our career, and share some of these things that we experienced. So Dave, you talked about being the only one in the room. Let's get into that a little bit more. What did you mean by that?
So, often when you're in tech sales, you have to speak in front of a crowd, whether it be your customer, someone else's customer, but you are presenting on a product. You may be doing some type of pitch, maybe even an education series that you're doing. Whatever that it is, a lot of times you are presenting in front of people who you don't know. And quite often, you don't know who's going to be in that room. Of course, you set up the meeting with a contact and the company, but they may invite other people. A lot of times, you don't know what the background of those people are. You typically know whether it's going to be more of a salesy pitch or business driven pitch or something really deep technical. And like we talked about before, I've had different roles, really deep technical to more sales oriented. But I know when I had a very technical sales role, you're walking into a situation where there may be somebody in that room that's really, really sharp technically, may know a product really well, and they may be trying to test you. And the fact that you're walking in the room, and let's be transparent, Wole, I'm a 6'3" black man. When I walk into a room, there aren't a whole lot of people that look like me, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I see where you're going. So you're saying that um, it might it can be a little bit uncomfortable to be in a room where you don't feel that you're represented. Is that what you mean?
That's exactly right. And most of the time, you think about your social setting, you are around people that look like you, or at least some of the people you're associating with look like you. Usually mixed. I have a very kind of mixed environment when I think about my social interaction with people. But
Right.
at work, if that social interaction that you have at home and outside of work is different, and then you step into this role where there isn't anyone in the room that really represents you, it can be intimidating. So I'm going to talk about kind of how I deal with that, because
Sure.
you can reach a certain point in your career where you're dealing with that all the time. So one of the
Yeah,
key
I,
things.
I,
Oh, go
I
ahead,
think
Willa.
I
Yeah.
think well, I think this is a good topic because if you're going to be working in tech, if you're African American, you're likely not going to be working in a company that is majority African American. So this is
Right.
something that you will have to deal with. So I want to hear your perspective on how you've encountered this and how you've dealt with it.
Yeah. So one of the things I try to do is try to research the number of who's going to be in that room, right? What are the titles? What are the backgrounds? How long have they been? And LinkedIn is a great tool for that. If you have the person's name and obviously you have the company, you can kind of research who's being invited. If you don't have access to that, then one of the things I do, regardless of whether or not I know who's in the room, is know your product, right? Know your topic cold, so that regardless of what is asked of you, you either have the answer or you know exactly how to get that answer. Nobody knows the answer to all product questions. Even if you're in a product group, right? Product group is very segmented to different parts of the product. No one knows the entire product, at a super deep level, can answer every single question. But what you can do is really prepare yourself so that you're confident when you're speaking. And that way you're not focusing on who's in the room. You're focusing on yourself, right? And what you're talking about.
Let me ask you a question there.
Go
So
ahead.
what I hear you saying is that be an expert in your craft, right? So
Right.
that's super important. Earlier you talked about using LinkedIn and or some other tools to figure out who's going to be there. Can you dig into that? Like why do you do that and how does that help you?
Yeah. So if I know there's going to be a lot of technical people in the audience, then I will probably change my pitch or presentation a little bit so it suits the audience. And this is a good thing to do regardless of who you're speaking to. If it's a less of a technical audience, more business oriented, then I'll swing the presentation a little more towards that. But it allows me to kind of get in my mind, is this going to be a technical deep dive, or is this going to be a discussion about business drivers, business value? And I can anticipate the type of naysayers in the room. And if you think you walk into this situation, you're not going to have a couple of naysayers or people who are not pulling for you or like the product, then you're sorely mistaken. So what I try to think about is, are there going to be technical objections or technical inquiries about what the product or can and can't do? Or is it going to be more about, hey, how is this actually driving my business? What can this solve for me? Those kind of questions on the business side. That allows me just to get my mind prepared for that room. And when I walk in, I can kind of think about how am I going to deal with those kind of objections or questions. And sometimes they're just pure, honest questions, but you can't think about everybody in the room is going to be a fan of yours or a fan of the company you represent, and just try to anticipate that.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you a story that actually happened to me, and one of my former colleagues actually reminded me of this.
This is
It's
what I was
happened.
waiting for. I wanted this. These are the Chronicles of the Inside Guys. So this is we need to hear stories.
So this is what happened to me. I had a former colleague, and it happens. This has happened so often to me. I forgot individual stories, but I was recently reminded about this one. So a colleague of mine, I was a technical specialist, so I just dealt with the technical aspects of the product as it mapped to the business drivers for organizations. So the account rep at the time had invited me out, and he had set up a meeting to talk to this particular customer about security. So in security, you have a lot of people who can really go deep. A lot of times they are very segmented into what they focus on, or siloed at what they focus, but they can go very deep in that particular area. So he said he was really happy that I was coming. He had seen me present to other customers. Fortunately, I had a good reputation in that area. But when I walked into the room, he could feel the tension from the people in the room. And
He
again, no one looked like
he
me.
told you this later, I guess.
He told me this later. Yeah,
Okay.
I went to all my prep and really was blocking that out, but I knew it was there. And
Why
so
were
he
they
told me,
tense? What were they tense for?
because I looked different than they looked. And they
Okay.
had a certain person in their mind, the look, the background, and I
Right.
didn't fit that. Right. And
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
all it was. I hadn't even opened my mouth up. And I
Wow.
walked in, and he said he could tell they were kind of, tensing up and like, oh, is this going to be a waste of time? And the whole
Oh
thing. So
God. Right.
I didn't let it affect me,
There you
didn't
go.
let it sway what I was going to do. And he said, as I was speaking and presenting, he could just kind of see their whole body language was just settling down, right? Relaxing, like listening, asking questions. And I remember a couple guys were, well, let's just make something up. Well, I mean, can that product actually look at all my IP subnets, and can it actually? I said, yeah, absolutely, it can do that, and this is how you do that. Shut down that person. Another person said, yeah, but we've already got this product, and it does this and this. So I don't really see. Well, let me tell you the difference between that product and this product, and here's the benefits. So I just start knocking down those roadblocks, and end up
Right.
developing a good relationship. A good meeting came out of it, and the customer ended up buying the product. But I didn't let that situation make me feel intimidated or shrink back, or not speak with confidence. Always
Right.
kept my head up,
Yep.
made eye contact when I'm speaking to them. I mean, some of these are basics, but I see sometimes that's lost in some of the younger generation. You've got to, have that firm handshake. Some of the old school techniques of firm handshake, eye contact when you're talking to a person. And if a person is, you kind of pick up, they're trying to be that naysayer or cause an objection, don't take it personal, right?
Yes.
And I've seen them do this to other people that look just like them. So they're not going to treat you special. And
Right.
we can't get too caught up on the fact that we do look different than the person we're speaking to, because
Yep.
they may very likely do that to anybody. And that's kind of how I always try to think about it. Is
I've heard, I mean, this same thing, I mean, we're talking about as two African Americans and, sort of dealing
Yeah,
with this in our industry, but I've heard women say the same thing as well. So I've heard women, I know for a fact, women go through the same thing, women in technology, because they are underrepresented group in this field. So, all of what you said is applicable to women as well.
yeah, very
So
true.
yeah, I mean, it's great advice. I had a question though. So you talked about your friend who brought you into this meeting and who noticed like the tension initially. Couple questions. In the end, your friend was happy that he brought you into the meeting, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. He
Okay.
was actually beaming and proud because he had kind of set me up as an expert coming in and could speak to all these topics. So, and I didn't let him down, and
Okay.
all the things he set up was, worked out. So he was definitely happy.
Okay. Well, that's good. So that's I mean, yeah, I mean that's a great sort of that story is a microcosm of what many might face, not just in tech but in lots of different industries.
Yeah, and you just have to be prepared when you get into tech industry, like you mentioned earlier. You're going to have to get outside of your comfort zone. And I think that goes back to networking outside of the same demographic, right? Being diverse in your networking,
Yeah.
connecting with people of all backgrounds, so that when you do walk into the room, whether they look like you or not, you have communication skills, you have interaction experience with people of all different backgrounds.
You
And
have
that
a
helps
comfort
you
level.
feel less uncomfortable, right?
You have a comfort level, and
Right.
just in general with um, all kinds of demographics.
Yes, yeah, and it's easy to just talk to people who look like you or have the same background, and this transcends all ethnic groups. Make sure you're being diverse again in your association within your networking, and that will benefit you greatly as you walk into these situations where you just don't know who's going to be in the room, and that's really it in a nutshell.
Great advice. I wonder if anyone else watching this has had similar experiences of being the only one or one of few in the room. If so, I would love to see some comments and some perspective on how do you deal with that, because I've certainly faced that throughout my career,
Yeah.
um, and it's something that is just a reality. So, would love to hear some perspectives in the comments.
Yeah. And you've gotten this far. If you thought the story was beneficial or helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe. Even in comments, let us know some other episodes or topics you'd like to see. We want to make sure this is relevant and helpful. We together have almost 60 years of experience in the tech
60,
industry.
is it that much? I
We
think
we get
I think it's closer to 50.
we get yeah, we get up there though.
All right. Don't age us that much, man.
But please, we want to make sure we share our stories and our experience to help y'all. Please like and subscribe, and thank you again for viewing.